YouTubers, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, Master That English, where we understand, analyze, and interpret the important texts and concepts that may be part of your English curriculum. Our topic for today takes us to the Indian modern poet Arun Kolatkar. And the poem that we'll be focusing today is his magnum opus work, Jejuri. So, get your pens and notepads ready because here we go. Arun Kolatkar. The critic Bruce King describes Kolatkar as an influential bilingual experimentalist along with the poets such as Dilip Chitre. What's unconventional about their writing is that they do not follow the basic traditional course that their previous generation followed. They wanted to talk about the realistic representations of the society along with the things that we are not comfortable in sharing or talking about. One generally needs a bird eye perspective in observing these details minutely in order to represent the realistic notions that these aspects and observations often highlight. Which is the reason why we often notice that poets who are being very realistic in their representation unwillingly try to emerge a very ironic tone in the manner in which they express through their work. And this is what we would get to see in today's poem. To a certain level, this poem collection, that is Jejuri, has been described as a glass poem by Arvind Krishna Malhotra. And this is what he has to say. What you think, you see through the glass in the place. What you really see in your own reflection trying to look through. Sylvia Plath tried to imagine two mirrors looking at each other. And I do agree with that. Because to a certain level, this collection of 31 poems is a journey to a very religious pilgrimage area where the speaker happens to visit. And through the very descriptive mode in which he describes the characters, describes the place, you get a very strong sense of realistic representation about that place and the lustre that it is lacking over the passage of time. That is probably the reason why this work won the Commonwealth Poetry Prize, and it was published in the year 1976. So let's try to understand the very first poem in this collection that is titled The Bus. I consider this title to be very significant because a bus is a voyage, a journey that you're taking. It is very important to identify with the purpose of your journey. If the purpose of your journey is a religious notion, then there is a certain level of tone that is set in your mind. You are calm, you are energetic, you are almost in a very explorative mode of discovering and exploring about your environment because that is why you are heading towards this very foresight of getting that insight about the very spirituality that you believe in. The one work that always reminds me of this very notion of calm demeanor is a famous work written in the 14th century by Geoffrey Chaucer titled Canterbury Tales. Now, in that, the very month, that is the month of April, was considered to be the month in which people go with a huge level of enthusiasm, interest, and the whole prologue, if you listen to it and if you read it, you get a sense of calm demeanor because the manner in which people interact with each other, they want to share stories and anecdotes about each other's life. That is the level of exploration that we get to experience. But if I have to compare that very work with this work, what do I really experience? Do I get the similar level of calm and composure that was there in that particular work? Is this modern object of transport able to deliver a similar level of representation as many of the modes of travel did in the previous centuries, which were about spiritual quest and exploration? The answer is a very sad no. What you notice in this particular poem is the manner in which every element associated with the mode of transport has been personified in order to highlight the level of inadequate means the journey provides to the traveler who's traveling in this journey to this pilgrimage place. The very first observation that the poet or the traveler makes in this journey through the mode of transport is the condition of the mode of transport, that is the bus, where the roof has now been substituted with a very cheap artificial man made material, that is a tarpaulin. People often use this material during camps just to get a waterproof covering. And you notice that this very cheap material is the only available source for maintaining this transport vehicle. And the reason because there has not been much effort taken in terms of maintaining the vehicle, considering the fact that the details mentioned about it being that it is a state transport vehicle, shows the negligence that this transport vehicle is attaining from the agencies who are delivering a pilgrimage, who are going to this place. What I find interesting in the poem as we move ahead in the lines is the manner in which the other aspects of nature have also been personified in a demonic form. They seem to be very disturbed by this negligence that humans are committing in terms of getting in tune with the nature. Because spirituality is a mode of connecting with nature itself. But the poet experiences inconvenience, and this inconvenience is highlighted by the personifying natural elements that are expressing their force of rebellion. Where air is personified as a physically abusive force, the element of earth, that is the road, has been described as a verbally abusive force. And that's not all. You notice that there is a level of discomfort noticed by the traveler even in the mode of experiencing the visual beauty that is available outside. Because the tarpaulin limits the very aspect of visual escape for the journey. Again, that sounds very Hopkins in the manner in which we use the term escape. But we do not get to see that level of connections, as poets like Gerald Manley Hopkins were able to do in his poems like Windover. On the other hand, what we notice is that the traveler has submitted to the very notion of just confining himself to his inner thoughts, because he's not able to interact even with the fellow travelers who are there with him in this journey. The only person he has in front of him is an old man. And this old man represents the age gap. This age gap is forcing the traveler to introspect in the solitude that he's experiencing throughout this journey, where he is not able to connect with nature, with people. This disconnect can be observed through the very reflections the traveler observes through the reflection of the old man's glasses. And that doesn't end. The traveler can only interpret things based on the reasons why people are going on this journey in the first place. What he notices next is the symbolic representation that is in between the old man's eyebrows, which has been described as the caste mark. This caste mark represents the social symbol and represents the idea of social obligation that culture imposes on every individual who has to follow his beliefs in accordance with the social norms. There are other interesting adjectives that have been used to describe the essence of nature. The description seems to be that of a battlefield arena, where things have been personified as if an armed soldier is representing a dominant force on everything that comes on its way. It is surprising to see that this armed, dominant role has been given to the sun. Hence, through the realistic mode of description, Arun Kolatkar definitely does represent a similar style of Chaucer's mode of writing that is very realistic, honest, as the reader is able to understand the contradictory role this mode of transport is facilitating to the very traveler, where comfort has been transformed into discomfort, and the discomfort is layering the notion of how such ignorant cultural and social norms, the bus fails to perform the role of being the muse of inspiration for the traveler on his religious quest. And that brings us to the conclusion of our first segment in this poem, which is titled The Bus. Stay tuned for the next section that I'll be uploading very soon. I hope this talk was enriching for all of you, and I'll be back with the second segment soon. Take care until we meet next time.